today we're going to talk about fearful dogs. And this actually applies to fearful kitties too. This is my particular passion. I live with a fearful dog. This is, of course, the root of a lot of aggression, which is also what the bulk of my behavior work is when people hire me privately. So I want to spend just a little bit of time kind of going over a primer over, what fear is about, how fear presents itself, some of the strategies that I have found work incredibly well, and along the way I'll be referencing the work of some wonderful other trainers and doctors who have done tons of work on stress and fear that have really changed the way we handle stress and fear with all animal populations. The zoo kingdom has changed hugely on this. Marine mammals have changed hugely because of the work that's been done. So, first things first, if you were out walking on the street and a total stranger walked up to you and offered you $1,000, what would you do? Would you take it?
I would.
I know what their agenda was.
Would you, so let's say you took it. Would you trust the person that gave it to you?
No.
If anything, you'd be suspicious, right? Like, why is this random stranger giving me something for free? So one of the things that dogs and cats are amazingly good at, reading agenda. And so one of the most common mistakes people make with fearful creatures is using food to try to lure them closer to what they're scared of, you. And that is just like me trying to lure a total stranger with $1,000. They might snatch it and run, but they don't want to get any closer to me, right? So one of the things that I want to remind everyone is that we all animals, including humans, experience fear pretty much the same way, right? If you've got an amygdala, if you've got a primitive brain, if you have the fight or flight reaction that is housed in the amygdala, the vast majority of the animal kingdom, and especially domestic animals that we work with, we all experience fear the same way. So if you are ever wondering about a strategy in terms of interacting with a fearful creature, think about whether or not it would work with you. Because it's a really good, would you do this with a 5-year-old child that was terrified, right? So, because that's a really good kind of test, because I see crazy strategies suggested for fearful animals. And one of the most commonly espoused theory by amateur trainers and non-scientists is commonly known as flooding. And flooding is when you take a creature that's scared of something and you drown them in it. So if you're terrified of spiders and I wanted to flood you, I would put you in a closet with 5,000 spiders and just shut the door. And I would wait for you to stop screaming. And it might take 2 hours, it might take 10 hours. But when you stop screaming, I would open the door and let you out. And many people would say, I fixed it. This person is no longer screaming and there's spiders. But have I really changed the way you felt about spiders? No. What I have induced in you is something called learned helplessness. And learned helplessness is a psychological condition that you enter in when you realize that there is nothing you can do to change the current state of affairs. So at some point after you've screamed, kicked, cried, carried on, had a total meltdown in that closet, you have realized there's nothing I can do. These spiders are going to be all around me. They're going to be all over me. There's absolutely nothing I can do about it. So you just shut down. You quit trying. And a lot of people say that's training. That's not training. I call that trauma. That's what I call that. I call that trauma, and I am wholly opposed to it. Now, I will say that this is also known as immersion therapy. which is used for certain psychological conditions, and it's been used in some cases more successfully than others, but that is typically under incredibly tightly controlled conditions. And you, as a human being that might be involved in immersion therapy, you get to have feedback throughout the therapy. This is too much for me, I need a break. These are things that a nonverbal animal like a cat or a dog can't do, right? Can't do. So, flooding it's less than a 10% success rate. So it's not that it's never worked, because every once in a while, an animal inadvertently gets flooded and it works. But the vast majority of the time, it does not work. And so here's another thing about flooding. And I'm thinking of a video that I saw of a popular TV trainer with a dog who was scared of linoleum floors. And he just put the dog in the middle of the floor and basically said, if you want anything, you're going to have to learn to maneuver across the floor. And it's a really painful video to watch. And in the end, did the dog get off the floor and make it outside? Absolutely. Did the dog ever get on the floor again? I don't know. I don't know if the dog would ever willingly go back to the linoleum floor. But I think what's really critical is if I was the person that locked you in the closet with the spiders, yeah, how would you feel about me? Would you want me anywhere near you? Right? So I think one of the things we really need to think about when we're working with vulnerable populations, and that's what these nonverbal little critters are, is there's a lot more going on when we're trying to help them overcome a fear of something than just, you're scared of spiders. The creature that you're dealing with that's scared of spiders, how you interact with that creature and help them get over the spiders or help them deal with the spiders informs their ultimate relationship with you. And so one of the things we really want for the dogs and cats that are here, and the rabbits and the rats, I think there was a rat, right? Wait, there's something else too, something kind of crazy.
Some gerbils.
Hedgehog. It's hedgehog.
We did have a fearful hedgehog.
I mean, what does a fearful hedgehog look like?
Just a bunch of little quills.
Right, like I just constant quill out, right? Like, is very often we are those of us that work with them, we're really valuable information about the human species in general, because the relationship that they have with us and the experience that they have with us is going to inform how they view every other human being that they meet, right? And so I think that gives us even greater responsibility when we're dealing with fear, when we're dealing with anything, but fear in particular, because I know it can be really frustrating. I live with a fearful dog. I know it can be really frustrating. But what is critical to me is that when my dog meets other people, he's thinking that the chances are pretty good they're a lot like me, right? And that they're going to be compassionate and they're going to be kind. And I think compassion is so important when you work with this, and very often people have time frames. And this is very true when I work with the general public. It's like, well, school's going to be starting soon, and we're going to be getting back into a routine, and I need you to fix this now. And it's like, well, a few months head start would have been extremely helpful. But, now that you've been shoving the dog in and out of the dog door for 3 months straight, in one hour session, am I going to make that dog love the dog door? It's unlikely. Right? I can start changing how the dog feels about the dog door. But and people are literally like, no, you have to fix this next week. And it's like, maybe should have called me when you installed the dog door before the dog had any association about that door. Because now the dog's got a pretty negative association, right? When it was neutral, when it was, hey, what's that? Oh, that could have been trained in an afternoon, right? But that's different now. There's history. There's baggage. That has to be worked through, right? That takes longer. So Pavlov's always at work, and not always the way we want Pavlov to be at work, right? So anyone that's that's dealt with, you know, I opened a closet and a mop fell and banged on the floor and my dog happened to be near it. And, you know, for about 3 months, my dog was like, that closet's got a monster in it. And, you know, I worked on it. But, you know, it was like inadvertent Pavlov on that one. And the thing that I think is really frustrating about Pavlov and classically conditioned responses is the negative ones, the fear-based ones, condition much faster. Because it's a survival necessity, right? If something's gonna hurt you or kill you, it makes sense that it would stick really fast, really strong. Like, how many of you had to touch a hot stove more than once to learn? Right? But, you know, for anyone that's inclined to exercise, how many times do you have to go to the gym and feel good to be like, yes, this is the thing I know I need to do, even though I want to stay in bed and eat a croissant, right? So the good stuff's always harder.
We'll let you know when that happens.
It's a rumor I hear. So the last thing that I want to, so what we're going to do is, in general, we want to pair the presentation of the fear trigger with a unique treat a dog doesn't get any other time. You guys did a lot of this with one of your foster dogs.
With Buster.
Yeah, with Buster. So it was Buster and cars, if I'm not mistaken. So there's a car, that causes liverwurst. There's a car, that causes liverwurst. Buster, you can do whatever you want. You can spin circles, you can be, you know, watching the car causes liverwurst. So what happens over time, and I'm not gonna lie, in general it's 2,000 repetitions. This isn't like training that happens on a weekend. This takes, I've had my dog for 6 years. This takes time. But what happens is, when you have successfully created a conditioned emotional response, the dog sees the fear trigger and goes, oh, where's my food? Do you see it? It's right there. It's right there. It's right there. I want my food. So my fearful dog was reactive to other dogs. And he now, I actually use him in my reactivity cases because he sees other dogs and he's like, woohoo, party's starting. And, you know, before I started this training, he was like, you know. But it was slow, it was steady, it was methodical, and you all don't necessarily have that luxury, right? I mean, how many dogs are here for 2,000 repetitions? So, one of the things that I want you to think about is very quick, very easy, and this is what we're going to be doing upstairs, safe zone training. So this was originally developed by Ian Dunbar, who is a vet. He's a dog trainer. He was the first person ever to run puppy socialization classes in this country in the 70s. He founded the Association of Professional Dog Trainers. He's got some wonderful books you can download for free before you get your puppy, after you get your puppy. They're slightly dated, but they're wonderful. They're on my website. You can download them from there for free. He called it treat retreat. So what he would do is if he was, let's say you're a scared dog, and I threw you a treat really far away, you didn't have to get any closer to me, and you leaned down and you ate it, when you looked up at me, he took a step back. So it was his way of saying, I give you good stuff, and I'm not even trying to mess with you. I'm not even going to try to come into your space. I'm not trying to in any way mess with you. Suzanne Clothier picked up this. She's an interesting trainer. And she calls it safe zone training. And I like her version a lot because I don't have to think as much. Seriously, you don't have to think as much. So, although she'd be offended if she heard me say that, without a doubt. No one sent this video to Suzanne Clothier. She will not be happy I just said that. I'm sure her version is filled with nuance, and that I have, you know, grossly undermined its precision. But I send dogs away from what scares them. So if I see a dog that's kind of fearful and curious and kind of gets a little closer, the move I make is, hey, get further away, turn around, go get the treat over there. And that means they'll turn around and go, really? And I'll say, yeah, really, there's the treat. Really? And so I do this with agility equipment all the time, dogs that I'm trying to get on agility equipment. What we tend to do is do the Hansel and Gretel, right? If you get closer, I'll give you a treat. Oh, you got closer? Well, now you're going to have to get closer and I'll give you a treat. Oh, you got closer? Now you have to get closer. We actually lie to dogs because we keep pulling it away. That does not engender trust, right? So if you're going to Hansel and Gretel, make sure you treat every step of the way. You took a step, here's a treat. You took a step, here's a treat. Don't lie to dogs. They remember it. They remember. And don't even try lying to a cat. Don't even try that, because they're like, no. So, with agility equipment, what I do is, let's say Heather's my tunnel. Go ahead. Dog, little worried. I will throw a little treat a little bit closer to the opening of the tunnel, and if the dog gets a little closer, if the dog says, no, I don't want to get closer, I'll throw the treat further away. The dog determines where it starts, always. Always. I always ask permission with the first treat. Where do you want to play? Where are you comfy? And I always 20 treats to find out where a dog says, no, right here is where I can start. Okay, great, thanks. So if you can start here, guess what? Go further away. Get a little closer, go further away. Get a little closer, further away. And I go back and forth. So what I'm actually playing with is, you're coming to the edge of your safe zone. That's really brave. I'm going to reward you by putting you back in it. You're going to get to the edge of it? Great. Go back in it. One of the things that I think this is essential in teaching, and this is Suzanne Clothier's point, I think it's a really good one. Many dogs, many beings that are terrified have forgotten how to flee. So, you've been working with your dog, they've sort of started thinking that people are okay, and they kind of get close, and they smell Sandy's, essential oils, like, oh, lavender, nah. They're feeling pretty good, and then they're like, oh, no. Now what do I do? I don't want to get any closer, but I don't know how to leave. That's like, now I don't know what to do. Let's go away. Let's go away. I think what's beautiful about safe zone training is it teaches an emergency exit. And I've spent tons of time with my own fearful dog bolstering his sense of flight. Oh, keep going, right? So when he gets scared, go. There's a million places for you to flee. You do not have to take that on. So I actually have a bunch of people now that are doing some work at my house, so my dog's had a lot of practice at this, and I'm there with treats, and when he's like, there's someone here, I'm like, yeah, go further away. Okay. So I spend a lot of time teaching. I think teaching dogs a graceful exit, essential. And what's really critical is when the dog or cat first makes contact. So let's say you've been doing this training, you've done 50 treats, you're losing all faith, and then the little boo comes up and goes, hey. That's usually when we're like, hi! They're like, ah! What is really essential at that point is to say, thank you so much, go further away. Keep going away. Keep going away. The thing with safe zone training is I'm never really sure what to click. Because, it's like, if a dog or cat's really scared, they're not accessing the frontal cortex, which is where decisions are weighed and consequences are processed. But there's the neurological benefit of the click if you've charged it. So I think part of my decision about whether or not I'd use a clicker if I was doing some safe zone training was whether or not the animal was already aware of that sound. And see, I'm thinking these are animals you can't even charge a clicker with yet because they won't work with you enough to do it. So my kind of first move is, let's play this game with food and see if I can get you rocking and rolling. And if I can get you rocking and rolling at some point, I'll introduce the clicker. Thought?
Yeah, I have one question. So you said that we should encourage disengagement. So would the command potentially leave it and then moving away from that object? No. Is that?
There's no command for this. There's no command for this. Leave it is actually what I use as an emergency. Don't touch it at all.
Okay.
Don't touch that at all. And I don't care what cue you use for that behavior. But what I'm trying to teach here is, it's sort of like, let's go back to the beginning example of a stranger walks up to you and hands you $1,000. If that stranger had, let's say, stood this far away from you and dropped $1,000 there and kind of looked at you. You're kind of like, and let's say you went for it. The next move the stranger made would be very telling to you, right? Because if the stranger then walked up to you, you'd be like, man, trapped. I fell for it, you know? If, on the other hand, the stranger moved backwards or wadded up a bill and threw it behind you, you'd be like, what game are you playing? And just started sort of throwing money back and forth, asking nothing of you. Asking nothing of you, other than, do you want to play this game with me? And then at the end, what if the stranger, after you got $5,000, $10,000, just walked away? Huh. People are kind of interesting, right? And so that's what I'm trying to engender. I'm kind of trying to engender, I think, curiosity, and it's not just, thank you. Nice word. And not just intellectual curiosity, but spiritual and emotional curiosity. I'm trying to kind of, hey, because I find that fearful creatures, by nature of their hypervigilance, are incredibly perceptive about agenda. They can read it from a mile away. I mean, I actually try to keep it out of my head. And that's what I like about safe zone training, because my agenda is go further away. What? And really you can see them like, huh? But you've got food, and usually people are trying to get me closer. No, I'm actually trying to get you further away. And then before you know it, and I see this in agility, we really should video this in agility, because it's really, dogs that are terrified of agility, of a piece of agility equipment, it might take 2 or 3 sessions, but by the time that they actually take that step to go through it, if they'll take 2 steps in the tunnel, most people would be calling them at the other end of the tunnel, go all the way through. I don't. I stop them and tell them to go backwards. Learn how to get out of there. Learn how to move backwards. When I'm working on the A-frame, which is terrifying from some dogs, I spend the first 3 sessions teaching them to make loops on it. So if you ever get up and get scared, you don't have to commit. You can always go backwards. Oh, okay. So then if they get up there and they get a little scared, they're like, wait, I've been here. I know how to do this. I can get off of this. Yeah, you can, right? Because I don't want them leaping 10 feet off of it. I want them. So I think giving exit skills, man, it's powerful. It's really powerful. And like I said, this is really Ian Dunbar and Suzanne Clothier's thing. And I spent a weekend with Suzanne Clothier. She had a seminar on this, and then I had a private lesson with my own dog with her. And the proof was in the pudding. I saw tons of fearful dogs that week. I work with fearful creatures. I live with fearful creatures. And it's changed everything. It's changed everything, because that shift in agenda, they really get it. So where are we going?
Well, one question.
Yes.
From a practical point of view,
Yeah.
how do you get exercise a safe zone on a dog with a dog on a leash?
I would do it before, well, first I have to have a relationship with the dog on the leash.
Okay.
So I would work on building that, and sometimes I even use a long line as
Well,
opposed to
the
a
dog's
leash.
here. So if you're walking the dog here, I mean, you may not
That
have a
was
relationship.
scared of you?
No, you may be scared of another dog as you're approaching.
Oh
You
yeah,
just
so
turn around
that's
and go
where
away.
you take big steps backwards. You do
Okay.
U-turns. You hide behind cars or shrubs. You say, I'm gonna be a partner with you in this, and I'm gonna get you out. I'm gonna give you more space. So, and sometimes that means being creative. Seeing someone coming and choosing to go in a room and wait for that dog to pass, or go upstairs and wait for the dog to pass, or say, hey, can you wait a second? Let me get my dog out of here.
Yeah.
So I can tell you that, again, because I have people working at my house, I ruthlessly manage my fearful dog. And he's come really far. He's the demo dog in classes. If you met him, you would say, he doesn't seem that fearful. But that doesn't mean it can't be triggered. But when I say, I ruthlessly say, hey, Painter, I need you to go back in your car for a minute because my dog's in the car and I need to get my dog in here. And I don't want him coming into where he's scared. Now, once I get him inside, I can then start working with him in the painter.
Right.
And it actually only took about, 5 sessions for him to think the painter was awesome. And I just said to the painter, just paint.
Yeah.
Don't look at him. Don't make eye, just paint. And I did safe zone, get closer to the painter, get further away, closer, further away. And then he was scratching his butt and saying, hi, painter, guy, this is really great. So the safe zone training is actually great for this. I would have a leash, and you can even attach, if you want, the leash to the kennel so that your hands are free. And you can you get a little closer to the threshold, get further away? Can you get a little closer, can you get on it, go further? Is one of the reasons why the dog doesn't want to come out, is he's afraid that if I take that step, if I commit, the door closes behind me, I'm in this world, I'm terrified. And so one of the things that I work really hard on is saying, if you can take that step, you get to go back to where you feel safe.
You're assuming that we got the leash on them?
And if you can't get the leash on them, then there's work that has to be done first. And that's get closer to me. In fact, like I thought your video was, so there's a perfect example of respecting space. So what dog were you working with again? What was that little
It's
dog? Bo. So Bo was not liking the stairs. And Bo, little feral dog, Bo not at all convinced human beings are okay, but we're winning him over slowly but surely. And so I came in one day unrelated. Was I meeting with you? I was meeting with someone. No, it was a therapy dog thing. You were on vacation. And I ran into Bo dealing with the stairs and not dealing with them well. Not dealing with them well. So one of the things that I advised was, rather than forcing him up and down the stairs, to give him the space to make choices. And food motivation was an issue because he wasn't very food motivated. So why don't you explain what you did?
Well, it was actually Pam was
All right.
through the week, so let Pam tell you what she did.
Good, Pam, what'd you do?
Well, I would take him just over by the stairs,
Uh-huh.
and we'd get as close as he felt comfortable.
That right there is the key statement. As close as he felt comfortable, right? So every time he worked with Pam, every single lesson he had, what was reinforced was, I get a vote. My vote counts. Someone respects my fear.
And they also have a relationship with Bo for
Which
a long time
Which is
beforehand.
awesome. So
Well, and
that
then
made all this
The
possible.
unbelievable thing about it was, like, I did this like 3 or 4 times, and you know, he'd buck a little bit, and then we'd get a little closer, and he'd buck. The 3rd time, I was standing at the base of the stairs, talking to some lady, and all of a sudden, I felt the leash tug, and Bo was going up the stairs, and I'm like, oh my God! I was like totally blown away. And he's looking at me like, what's the big deal? And I'm like giving him hot dogs. Like,
And see, I think it was interesting too that the moment you had kind of the breakthrough, you were not even working with him.
Exactly.
Right? Your agenda completely removed.
Yes.
So he felt no pressure, because even when you try to be all zen about it, in your head you're like, please go up the stairs, please, just one second, just one second, please. Like, you know, you kind of do the mind meld. It's like, would you please go up the stairs, you know? And I mean, I find it's really helpful to have some sort of distraction, you know, and you just happened upon it. But what, you know, and then when you have a dog that voluntarily takes that leap of faith, they own that in a way they don't any other behavior. I mean, it's like, I can do stairs, right? Like now I can really do it. And
Now
then,
we'll do an exercise ramp out the back.
Yeah.
He did it once yesterday for us.
very cool.
Same trick, hot
Now we're doing
dogs.
the ramp.
Exactly.
Very
If
cool.
he doesn't wanna go, we just go around, but he did the ramp yesterday.
Very, very, very cool.
And
Very
I
cool.
took him, I've walked him before, but never tried the stairs, and I thought, I'll try the stairs today with him. No problem, ran up them
Yeah.
and ran back down them.
Yeah.
Like me.
Nothing solidifies fear faster than having your vote taken away.
So Devin, that being said, not to stay on this topic, but like the dogs that Nancy was talking about, and that we were talking about it initially, that, you know, cower in the back of their kennel, is it better just to do a few minutes of the training and then just walk away? Versus, you know what, sweetie, if you don't come out now, you're not gonna get out for 24 more hours. What's the best thing to do in that?
So helpfully, I'm going to say it depends. Right, so that was really helpful. I think when I say that it depends, there are some dogs that are so shut down, so kind of traumatized, that it almost doesn't matter what you do. Like, if you take them out, it's not gonna increase their trauma, because they're just kind of in shutdown, freak out mode. Then there are the dogs, and you know those dogs, because you can see it in their face, you can see it in their body language. They're just, talk about learned indifference. They are just they're so traumatized, they're sort of in shock. And so if you physically manipulate them and move them in and out, they're just gonna sort of float. You know, they're not even, it's not gonna impact them. Then there's the dogs that are starting to kind of find themselves a little bit, and the thinkers. You can sort of see them kind of start sort of seesawing on, do I not trust this? Do I trust this? Those are the dogs that I think forcing them can really set you back hugely. So in that case, it's like, I know that your goal is to get them outside. And I think it's an awesome goal, because, you know, sunshine, ground, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's amazing things outside. And I would totally be torn with some dogs, and look, I know I'm about to traumatize you for about 30 seconds, but you're gonna be really grateful when I get you outside, right? Like, I mean, I totally get that. But I think that there's more at stake than just getting them outside, because these are dogs that have to, if they're going to be successfully adopted and successful in their new home, they have got to successfully work with people, and that's trust. And so I think sometimes it's makes more sense and ends up in the big picture being better for the individual to play that game for 2 or 3 days, and they're gonna start seeing other dogs come in. They're gonna pick up the scent from outside from other dogs. They're gonna start getting a little bit more balance just in this new environment, and they might be more inclined to take more chances. But if they trust you, they're definitely gonna take more chances.